Took me a second back up.
I push it one more time? Maybe a couple of seconds. Oh, it's not doing it.
There we
There
go.
it is.
Okay, let's stand and salute the flag. Ready? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item D, approving the order of agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the order of agenda?
Order to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So done. Blue folder item. There were no blue folder items, right?
That is correct. No blue folder items this time.
Okay. And the consent calendar. Do you have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain since I wasn't here.
Okay. No excluded consent items. Public participation on non-agenda items. Do we have? Our friend, Mr. Mueller, how are you?
Good evening. There have been surveys of North Redondo residents about what they want in their community. And yesterday at the NRB Farmers Market, everyone got to see a live demonstration of what they want, and it's not rooftop dining. What the residents of North Redondo want, apparently, is to get out on a sunny day with the spouse, the kids and the dog, mingle with their neighbors, maybe get popcorn, pizza, or ice cream, have a place to sit and chat or stroll and chat, safe from speeding traffic on their elbow. Maybe the residents of North Redondo want more businesses that involve community events centered on families and couples. When I go to community meetings, I don't see the people that I saw yesterday. I see people who always go to those meetings, usually older, usually complaining about e-bikes and homelessness. It's like a whole other community. Are these the people who want rooftop dining? Is this what the council people are listening to? Has it occurred to the city government that concerning North Redondo development, they're not paying attention to the majority, but listening to a minority? This may not sound like a budget and finance topic, but it really is, because these people who can't find what they want in their neighborhood are taking their money and their business to Manhattan Village, Del Amo Mall, Hermosa, Manhattan, and farther. Some of the recent measures, like eliminating parking requirements, are good. Assuming the strategic plan drives the budget, here's what I see for Artesia Boulevard. The area's contract is the input basis for economic development. What is its status? It has approved January 1st. There's been no public update. When will the FAR vote be taken? Will the LaBasse plan, specific procurement plan, and placements meet the budget timeline? Explain how rooftop dining is crucial to the strategic plan. Seems like a nice to have. Nothing in the strategic plan about walkability, reducing the traffic speeds, providing real public spaces. ACAP has been approved since 2019, and what has been done? Nothing about the Galleria property is in the strategic plan. Is there a budget provision needed to get that off the ground? So I asked the commission to make a recommendation to the city council that they take a look in the budget about what the people of North Redondo really want. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
And no Zoom comments or no one online.
Okay. No items continued from previous agenda. Item J, items for discussion prior to action. J1, fiscal year budget. Hello.
Hello. Good
I missed
evening,
you back
everybody.
there.
How we doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. Happy to be here. Mike Wasansky, City Manager. Always a pleasure to be before you. Just as a reminder of sequencing, tonight is more the listening session side of the budget development process for me. Chance for you all to provide early input in that budget document as we are working to prepare it and ultimately deliver it to council here in the next few weeks. Budget will be presented to them the weekend of kind of May 15, May 16, and then they will receive a formal receive and file presentation on the document at their May 19th City Council meeting. You will see and receive a formal presentation on the budget from us at your late May meeting, which I think has either been scheduled or will be scheduled later this evening. So that's the general timeframe. Don't have much to present to you today in the way of formalized revenue inputs or expenditure concerns, et cetera. I can give you kind of a general sense of where we are, and I can talk a little bit about some of our broader goals, but the department decision package requests, the sort of final revenue inputs are still being amassed and will be probably available here in the next week or so as we finalize the document. So we're in the thick of it, but we're not at the tail end of it yet. So now's a chance, as I said, really to hear from you, things for this commission to put top of mind on staff side and help inform that process and that budget development and the book itself. So anything you'd like me to share, I'm happy to share it. Any general topics you want to cover, I'm happy to provide Q&A on. It's really free for all at your discretion.
To the point of revenue and expense, I understand your comment that that's still being developed. What's the observation so far as revenue and do you have any major expense items that would be unusual or in size or scope?
Good question. I'd say my general takeaway now, as we await final numbers, is we are planning for another soft year in the TOT area from a revenue standpoint. So our transient occupancy tax revenue, which we have been hoping now for the last 2 years to see a significant rebound, I think looks to be soft again. It'll be better than last year. I mean, and when I say last year, the 26-27 revenue estimate will be higher than the 25-26 fiscal year numbers we are experiencing today. So it's positive in that sense, but it's not that $2.5–3 million snapback structurally that we were hoping to see. Too much uncertainty in the international visitor market, too many challenges, I think, just in household income and local spending. Offset, I will say, with one bright spot, the World Cup activities that are occurring in the region here in June should help provide some spike, but that will largely be, I think, for the 25-26 returns rather than the 26-27. So we continue to be, I would say, bearish in that particular category, which is a disappointment because we were hopeful that that would come back and we would have a chance to really see that structural return. That will force us, I think, to have to make some tough decisions in the budget. I don't necessarily expect us to need to make cuts, but it would not surprise me if I need to recommend a flexible hiring freeze to take advantage of vacancies in the organization and to rely to some degree on those savings to stay balanced this year. I am committed to doing our darndest to ensure that we don't draw from the reserve account again this year to balance. We're going into this trying to provide a balanced budget by relying on fund balance savings that we squirreled away a little bit during the mid-year process, and then being creative with some of our savings strategies. So that's our current approach. I do not want to, if we can help it, draw again from that reserve account that we used last year.
You're talking about
That CalPERS reserve account, yeah. We still have $4.5 million in there. I'm hoping to leave $4.5 million in there this year. In terms of unusual expenditures, we're seeing some relief on our unfunded accrued liability payment structure. We've known that we were going to have the roughly $4+ million payment this fiscal year. And I know this commission has received some presentation from our PERS rep on this. There's potential for some relief on the immediate horizon, particularly in the miscellaneous category of our PERS costs. We might actually extinguish the miscellaneous PERS unfunded accrued liability at the conclusion of next fiscal year, which would be fantastic. And that would lower our payment. But a lot of that's going to depend on how strong the market finishes in the 25-26 fiscal year. If it finishes strong, we actually might be in a really good place on a UAL basis in the very near term. If something occurs nationally and we see it weaken, we could see some recovery needed there. So we're cautiously optimistic on that front, but we are looking now at the UAL as being something we're planning for on more of a near-term, midterm horizon than, say, building into our structural budget, because it does appear that it's going to ebb fairly significantly over the next few years. So that's something we're constantly monitoring, but I look at that as, I would call it more, I look at that cost more hopefully this year than I did last year at this time. So, but outside of that, nothing significantly atypical. We still expect strong property tax revenues. Those have continued to hold steady for us. Sales tax is going to remain roughly flat, as we've discussed. That's a softer category as well for us. Our charges for service are doing quite well. We've increased our parking revenue gate with the changes we've made down on the waterfront, with some of the increases that we've attached to our meters. We are seeing good recovery there. We're seeing some success with our emergency response fee that was implemented this last year. We're starting to see those revenues accrue as a new revenue source. And our program participation fees, as well as our special event charges for different activities, are on the rise as well. So we've had some positive momentum there that's helping, but it isn't quite enough to overcome that TOT gap that we're still experiencing. So that's really, if I look at the budget and I say, okay, what's our biggest hole right now? It remains that transient occupancy tax projection.
What was our high in TOT contribution?
Our high, and this goes back now pre-COVID, was almost $10 million. And we're at 6 this year, and we hope to maybe be somewhere close to 8 next year, maybe. But realistically, with the value of today's dollar, that number, if we're fully loaded, should be 11 or maybe even more with the eddy coming online.
So there's a $3, $4, $5 million delta there.
Yeah, that's what we're missing right now. That's really the difference between us needing to take kind of savings action versus just being structurally balanced.
Speaking of revenue increases, where do we stand? Where does the Galleria stand as far as, are they still trying to get financing?
Stuck in the mud. They went out to bid here last year. They put it on the market. They were concluding that process initially in kind of the end of the calendar year, 25 calendar year. What I've been told is they were unhappy with the bids. They're reassessing. I've also been told they may actually consider taking on a partner and building the project as entitled themselves. Kennedy Wilson that wasn't necessarily their thought when they stepped into the note. But that's what I've heard could be their current thing. I haven't spoken to Stuart in a little while about it. So we're as eager as anybody to see what they're going to do with the site. We have paved the way. It's a fully entitled project. We have not just the initial 300 units that were approved. We've now provided a secondary entitlement, increasing that number up to 650 units. So there's the potential for them to build houses on what would be the northeast corner as well as the southwest corner. They have everything they need to come forward with the project. But to your point, it's the right builder and the right financing, and that capital market's been a struggle for them. Construction lending is still quite high.
I'm sorry, you said you went from 300 units to how many?
650 total.
Wow.
They're entitled for 650 residences. I mean, there is nothing in their way. The city has done everything it can to incentivize redevelopment at that site. It just takes ownership and capital. Love to see it. I mean, you want to talk about another hole in the boat, and I think I've shared this with you all before. There was a time when the Galleria was our single largest sales tax driver. It accounted for, I think in its peak, somewhere between 40 and 60% of our annual sales tax revenue. They are now accounting for less than 10% of our sales tax revenue and are performing at about, in their peak, they were at about 5x what they are today. Very
And
disappointing.
the AES site is still tied up in
Still tied up
lawsuits?
in bankruptcy and some iteration of litigation. And that appears to be the case for the foreseeable future. There will have to be movement here at some point. It can't be indefinite. Maybe in the next couple of months we'll see something shake, but right now it's right where we left it.
Referring to Mr. Mueller's comments at the beginning, what about economic development in North Redondo and Middle Redondo? What are we doing there?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of time and energy has been spent on Artesia. I mean, Jim mentioned the ACAP document that's been in place now for a few years. We have taken the actions we can take administratively to make the changes to incentivize reinvestment in the properties. The challenge we face there is largely absentee ownership. A lot of our property owners are trusts that don't live in our community. So what we've hired Arias to do, and they're still working through this because it's very difficult to basically develop this list, is to find out who the decision makers are on each of these properties. Not just who owns the trust in name, but who ultimately can make decisions. Reach out to them, explain to them the new development opportunity that exists and will exist potentially in further when the floor area ratio cap discussion is presented to the voters, and that will likely be this fall. If we target that election in November, we'll save the city some money. There's a chance we do a special election before that, but our anticipation is that the ACAP development increases that need to be approved through our Article 27 process will happen somewhere in the September, October, November timeframe. And that's going to be big. That's a big change if we're able to increase the floor area ratio cap from what is currently 0.6 to 1.5. It was mentioned that we've eliminated parking requirements. That's a big step. That's a very bold move for the council to try to, again, incentivize development, give the developers flexibility to do different things on their premises. One of the big barriers we've heard at the counter is meeting that old parking standard, which was very much Main Street retail oriented, where the expectation is everybody would drive in their car and stop at the store and pick up their good and then drive home. That's just not the energy we want there. The pedestrian oriented feel, really, you don't want that. You want parking in the rear. You want storefronts on the front. You want to create vibrancy. And the farmers market yesterday was a really great example of that. It was a fabulous, fabulous day out there. A lot of folks rolled through. I mean, a lot of really positive energy. Hopefully we'll see more of that. Artesia has gotten more attention, I would say, from council and staff in the last 2 years than it's ever had before. It's really a point of focus for us. It just takes time to bear fruit because you need the development community to come with you. And right now, we're seeing it in some spots. We entitled the Grub House project a year ago. We fast-tracked permitting months ago. It's been fully permitted. It's ready to build. Capital market, I don't know the ownership that stalled. A lot is happening on the private side of the ledger that is not bringing these things forward. Historically, I would say we were the barrier. From a regulatory standpoint, that's not the case right now. And I hope to see something from RES here in the next few months. I mean, I know they're working on it. We got a little bit of an update about a month ago. It's still an incomplete draft, but they are doing everything they can to identify the owners, and they're trying to pair them with prospective developers who would have concepts that would work on the boulevard. That's kind of part of their charge, is to create the inventory and then with their knowledge of the market, try to create partnership.
So the issue there is that there are properties owned, absentee owners who just aren't responding to any economic incentive to develop or redevelop the
They would
property.
rather just collect the rent check from a kind of a low rent operator and not deal with the tax implications of reinvestment or sale. You know, when you've got trusts that release the property, suddenly they've got cap gains responsibilities. You know, they may not be super savvy in the development area, so they don't necessarily have capital resource to invest themselves. But if they let go of the property, they've lost a source of income or have now have new tax liability that they can't account for. So this is one of those areas where, you know, Prop 13 can kind of stymie reinvestment because it's just cheaper and easier to sit on a property that's in a tired state than it is to see it sold and reinvested in. So we've got a lot of trusts that are in play on Artesia. You've got second, third generation ownership up there in many areas. Any other questions on the economic development? Yes, sir.
Excuse me. Where are we on the police headquarters and fire stations, the bond issue?
Moving along great. Thank you for the question. In fact, we shortlisted we've got it in two buckets. We've got police station rebuild, annex renovation in one category. We've got fire station 1 and 2 reconstruction in another. We've solicited proposals from prospective progressive design building contractor firms. We had great response for both. We shortlisted it to 4 prospective PBDers on each side of the equation. Interviews for the police group occurred Tuesday. Interviews for the fire group occurred today. Our evaluation team will shortlist that further, start the due diligence reference check process, and we hope to make recommendations to council on the selection of those design contracting firms here in the next couple of months.
So what's the latest projection for the total cost?
It's looking, what we're hearing at the table from the folks, and it's a two-step process. So we bring them on, they give us a general estimate now. When we get to, I forget if it's 60 or 70% design, then we do a final negotiated price. And, but what they're saying at the table now, given the information that they have and that we have, is that we are able to deliver on budget. That's the feedback we're getting from the firms that are bidding. So far, so good. Fingers are crossed. It's progressing on schedule, on time, and looking pretty good. We'll probably issue the bonds later this fall. If I had to guess, that's the kind of general time frame, because we will be spending significant money. We've been floating our pre-concept cost work thus far. We'll be spending significant money in the next fiscal year, I believe, if things remain on schedule. Yes, sir.
Mike, just have a quick one here on the configuration of the fire department buildings. Does that take into consideration the paramedic may do a carry, not just a paramedic medical treatment?
Meaning a transport, if we were to bring on transport as well?
That would seem to reconfigure from an older layout to something that was designed differently. And also the fact that 95% or so of the calls are paramedic calls, very little need for the heavy equipment. Although what I will say is that I see the heavy equipment being used, what appears to be in order to be able to make the the service call on the heavy equipment. We had down the street a heart attack call. We saw a hook and ladder truck. We saw the chief's car. We saw three fire department vehicles plus the private carry.
The ambulance
deal.
McCormick ambulance.
And there was nothing they didn't take anybody out. So, I mean, as an example of perhaps overloading the.
Yeah, no, we're sensitive to that. We try not to roll the hook and ladder unless it's needed. There is occasion though, because all of our equipment and the lion's share of our staff are paramedic certified, we're able to deliver advanced life support services from virtually every unit. So if we have engines that are out in the field on a call and what's remaining is the ladder, we still have a team that can go out and address a potential heart attack. So we'll do that. But it depends on the time of day, the call, if we've got units on wall time and you know, transporting to hospitals and the like. There's a lot of factors that go into that. But I will say in the last couple of years, in fact, Pat and I, the chief, just talked about this today. We made a very concerted effort to keep the ladder truck in the station, in the bay, unless it's needed. And if it's needed, we're having some kind of a resource allocation issue at the time. So our folks continue to do a really, really great job.
Also, just another question, just thought of, would it make sense also to be looking at, say, that paramedic service to be 3 8-hour shifts, not sleeping at the fire station, or whatever?
Yeah,
I mean, just a totally new shift in paradigms on instead of calling it the fire department,
right.
It's really
paramedic response.
Kind of, that's really the
it is. I mean, what we try to do, you know, and that's one of the things when we look at an engine, right? It's hard, you know, we all see an engine, we go, that's a lot bigger than a car or a truck. So it doesn't necessarily come across as intuitive, but that engine for us is a far more mobile piece of apparatus, right? And if we've got a captain and 2 operators on the rig that are all trained in advanced life support and paramedic service, that is for us a rolling paramedic unit. We don't anticipate transporting anybody, obviously, in the engine. So that's where McCormick comes in and we meet them on the scene. And that's really the way it's meant to work, to be flexible, to provide rescue support, fire suppression, and to your point, 90% of the time, paramedic service. And at least now with the EMS fee that we're charging, we're getting some return for that service. If somebody calls for an incident that they could have otherwise deployed it by going to urgent care, you know, and we administer service, they're charged a fee just like they would be if they went over to Exeter or Exeter. So that's actually, we're starting to see some return on that, which is great. And I think that's fair, because that isn't a service necessary. That is an individual call for service, not a community call for service. Whereas fire suppression, a little different matter, right? You're protecting not just the home and the structure, but the neighborhood. So a little different there. But we try to be nimble. We are using more paramedic squads than engines for when we can. But what's important is we're always on standby for a potential emergency or rescue call. So it's important that we continue to work in tandem to some degree. So if there is a car accident or something more significant, we can quickly pivot to that incident.
Would it be possible also perhaps to provide another vehicle, another EMT vehicle, so that your folks that normally ride when you get 5 people or 6 people on the hook and ladder,
out.
2 of them can hop into the other vehicle and they're paramedics all of a sudden instead of rubber boot wearing, hose carrying guys.
Well, they're always going to be rubber boot wearing. That's a factor, even when they're in their paramedic role. But we have thought about trying to be more nimble with our apparatus, have more access to squads where we can roll. The key is just making sure we don't break up the unit that is needed to respond if you have the more significant event. And that's the hard part. If you get people too disjointed, you can't rely necessarily safely in those different calls for service. So, but I will tell you, Pat and his command team, they do a lot of work to try to be as efficient with that rollout as we can be. And we're fortunate to have a couple of different engine companies, and you know, we're fortunate to have the ladder truck. We're trying to use that a little more sparingly than we used to, I would say.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the questions.
Regarding CalPERS, we're concerned about, always concerned about the UAL. I think I saw numbers that they had a 7.7% return for the first 2 quarters of the fiscal year. The first quarter of the calendar year was a bummer, but as of a week ago, the S&P had recovered its loss for the first quarter. So it looks like now, if things hold steady where they are now, they'll make their 6.8%, but they won't do much to erase the negatives for the last 4 years.
Yeah, I think what we need this year is for them to hold serve. really. If they can just if they can hit their return mark, maybe beat it by a touch, that would be good for us, because the prior 2 years, as you know, we've seen pretty significant gains. We just don't want to go backwards. So I'd feel great if they just hit the 6.8. You know, if they were anywhere from 6.8 to 7.2, I'd be thrilled this year. Obviously, we'd like more, but if we can just get there, kind of limp across the finish line, I think we'd be in a pretty good place based on our most recent projections.
I would say the other thing to remember about kind of the upcoming years of our unfunded liability is, we ramp in the losses and gains. So the positive impact that they're projecting for the next few years, that's not even at the high point of the impact of the gains that we've seen from the last few years. So as the city manager is saying, if that continues to hold steady, we're already at the peak, I believe, of the losses, and we're just kind of ramping in the gains. So even without another great year, we should see some really positive movement.
I'm looking forward to this summer's actuarial report, assuming the S&P stays where it's at today or maybe improves slightly by the end of June. But there's so much variability. I mean, at the turn of the calendar year, we're like, oh man, we're going to have another great year. This is fantastic. And then
it changes on a daily basis.
It does. So definitely, I'd say I'm holding my breath. I don't know if I'm holding my breath or keep my fingers crossed. I don't know what I'm doing. It's all over the place.
Any further questions of Mike?
Or anything you think we should be thinking about with the budget development? I know this group's always, very fiscally conservative, and we share your sentiments, so I know that coming in, but.
Yeah, we would like to see a balanced budget and the 4 million restored to CalPERS and all sorts of things, but we understand the issues.
Yeah, it's going to be a challenge this year, but I will say we're going to do everything we can to avoid drawing again from that funding. It's going to.
Yeah, I guess I didn't attend all of the council budget meetings last year as I will this year, but we were surprised to see that. I was surprised to see that that reserve docked for the 4 million. But when you think about it,
only 3.5.
Yeah, it's 3.5. But when you think about it, it's a CalPERS reserve, and it was the CalPERS UAL payment that really caused the issue. So you can justify going into that reserve for some amount of money to cover that.
In all fairness, the CalPERS payment we made last year for UAL far exceeded what we took from that reserve account. I mean, I think it was 4.2 last year. We took 3.5. So we found a way to pick up 700,000 of that 4.2 without tapping the fund. So that, I appreciate you saying that. That's why it's there. And there was a time when that's exactly what we used to do with the fund. We would, whatever the UAL payment was, we would start with that fund, we'd take it from the fund, we'd make the payment, and then at the end of the year with savings, we'd hopefully put it all back. That served us well, and it helped us grow it to about 8 million. This was the first time in a long time when we had to do that again.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping we won't need to this year. If we do, it'll be a small amount of money, nothing like the 3.5 you saw last year.
Okay.
You guys had a strategic plan meeting. Is there a document that summarizes what was, I'm on the website and I'm trying to find it.
The document's coming, so what they do at the conclusion is that they create draft objectives, and then we take those drafts, we refine them, we put who's doing them, when they're coming due, we provide a little more description, so it's very clear the objective is measurable, clear, concise, all those things. And that document will come to them on May 5th. So the council will consider adopting the strategic plan at their May 5th meeting, which is 2 weeks from now.
So that's probably a document we would want to see in this meeting. Otherwise, I have no data in front of me to give any input.
Well, the strat plan is its own. I mean, there's the prior strat plan. I mean, if you want to see that, that's still active. I mean, that plan is currently online. I mean, you're able to find that. We had 100 and we did a accomplishments listing to show kind of what we've completed last year. We had almost 130 items that had been completed over the prior planning period. We didn't change the goals much. There was a few edits to the goals. but they're largely continuation of the momentum we built last year. And yeah, that document will come. It'll be in the public ether on May 5th.
Okay.
All right. Well, it's
Thank you.
always good to see you all. We'll be back here again, I guess, at the end of next month, and have a good rest of the meeting. Take care. All right.
Moving on to item J2.
Just to pause for public comment before we move on. Anyone from the public like to speak on this item?
Good evening again. I'm sorry that Mike left because I sympathize with him because I'm sure you're all familiar with the concept of rent collection. Well, we have a whole cadre of rent collectors, and Artesia Boulevard is the focus of that, as Mike described, who are slowly strangling this community. And what the farmers market showed is that there are people with money to spend who live right within walking distance of that boulevard, who don't spend their money on Artesia Boulevard. Now, that doesn't make any sense of fairness. There has to be something that can be done to force the rent collectors to give up their property or at least allow it to be used in the public interest. And I know that academic studies have been done. In fact, there are many about revitalizing communities. And I'm sure that one of those communities has faced the problem of rent collection. And I didn't hear in the budget that, and maybe the Arias people will have a solution to this, but I kind of doubt it reading their contract. But I think that is the basic problem. And I don't know what the Budget and Finance Commission can do about it except to recommend to the council that they search for a way to pry these rent collectors off the boulevard. Now, there's one property that I've been really interested in, 2017, 2019 Artesia Boulevard. Georgette Gantner is interested in developing a community center there. And our nonprofit that we developed to sponsor the market, our NRB, is going to help her with this, has already helped her with this, and she's been in contact with the person who owns that property. And she's been able to persuade that person to at least listen to her proposal. And not only that, but expresses interest in her proposal so that that property, which has been vacant for at least 12 years that I know of, can be used for the public interest. Now, our nonprofit, our NRB, that's what we're trying to do, is to help public interest, help the neighbors have things that they can do on Artesia Boulevard, public benefits, and that they can spend their dollars at home instead of having to take them to Manhattan Beach or Torrance or wherever. So I suggest that the commission recommend to the council that they look into how you can pry these rent collectors off their properties. Thank you.
Thanks.
Is this open or specific to a, sorry, I walked in a little late. Open public comment?
This is on the budget input agenda item.
That's kind of wide open there. Tell me if I'm off course. My comment, my name's Steve Haig, 35-year resident, and I wish Mike didn't leave. I was going to have a car show comment because that has to do with parking, which has to do with the best revenue increase. Last year's gone. This year, I'm afraid it's going to collapse. I've lived off one block off Artesia for 35 years. Fortunately, I'm blessed to be traveling throughout the country. Now I don't. I just manage my own properties and volunteer. Hopefully my volunteering is in the city. but it becomes hard to engage with some folks in the city. My comment and just my humble opinion, I've had a feeling of Redondo Beach being anti-business for many, many years, and you can walk, I'll drive you. We can walk down Artesia, and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. It's been neglected. When you drive into the city, what do you see? What kind of city are we? Is it dive bars? Okay, you have your selection. Is it massage places? Is it smoke shops? Why in the world would people invest in some areas of Redondo? Congratulations, Jim, on your market. That's wonderful. Something needs to be done on the library. I had somebody try and go to the library. You can't go. You got to park 3 blocks away. So I'm sure Jim's a brilliant man. He'll address that. Somehow we have to change. What do we stand for? 2/3 of the kids live in North Redondo. Is there anything they can do other than e-bike? I've been injured with blood and everything else from an e-bike, so safety is a concern. My main topic, and I'm gonna be at as many commissions meetings until this gets resolved, LGBT plus statue in front of the library? Come on, folks, really? I tracked this. I saw a blurb at one of the local council meetings, lasted 3 to 5 seconds. That's been it as far as a discussion since January. What are we going in? Coming up May? Council doesn't want to go head on. Why? There's some political gamesmanship behind the scenes, in my opinion. I've been told that. But anyway, I've done my work. 90% of the folks in the area, businesses, public, etc., do not want that statue there, sculpture. I hope it's not done. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay.
And no one on Zoom and no e-comments.
Okay, thanks. Item J2, professional services procurement. Stephanie?
Good evening, Commissioners. We are bringing this item back to you as discussed in prior meetings. Sad Mr. Mueller has left to not hear our discussion on it. We don't have a lot for you this evening. We are working, as we discussed in prior meetings, on a couple of things. One is identifying exactly how much each year we spend on professional versus contractual services. Another item that our purchasing lead is working on specifically for this commission is a very detailed analysis of those professional services that identifies exactly what the service is, the vendor, and the type of procurement process followed. So as I've mentioned several times to this commission, although we're not required to do any competitive bidding for professional services, frequently we do. And this will demonstrates kind of the circumstances in which we do or do not end up going out for some competitive process. Something I did want to share with you this evening, and Jacob, if you could pull up my screen. I just wanted to share a little bit about the process that I think I've mentioned a few times to this group is ongoing in the city. Again, this is a citywide process looking at all aspects or many aspects of purchasing in great detail, including professional services. So we have a number of task forces, but I just wanted to share the project plan with you this evening to kind of give you a good idea of the level of work that is going into this. We are currently probably in the middle of phase 2 and 3. Jacob is serving on a number of these task forces, including the professional services one. So he'll have some good updates for you in the future. But as you can see here, we are looking at our entire system workflow, including policies and procedures. We're looking at data. We're looking at a lot of best practices. And our goal, so you can kind of see here, we've gone through the planning. we're looking at our current state. Following that, we're going to look at recommendations and develop materials. Will then, continue to plan how that will work out and present our recommendations internally. So I wanted to share this just so the commission and hopefully any public that's interested are aware this is something the city is reviewing in great detail. And in some cases, I don't want to get too far ahead of it. That said, as this has come up as a matter of interest, if you have best practices from specific organizations, if there's another city that that does this really well, we'd love to receive those recommendations. We can incorporate those into our ongoing processes. And of course, continue to update this group as we go through this. So that's where we are. I don't have too much else to share with you this evening. But if you have any feedback on this, or if you want to kind of direct us anywhere for, any specific policies or procedures that you'd like to see, we're happy to look at that.
Did you provide I thought you, or today or last time, the total professional services agreements and then by department, I thought that's where we left off. Was that already provided? That's what I thought.
We don't have it broken down for professional services, and unfortunately, that's just it's a much more complicated task than it would appear to be, because we have many of these and we don't have the data broken down in our financial system in any way that defines professional versus contractual services.
Well, then both contract. Okay, so
we definitely
in a
have
budget,
both.
Can I finish? Thank you.
Oh, sure, of course.
So in a budget, usually there are professional services. So you don't have a separate line for professional services in the budget? Is that what you are saying?
We have a line item that combines contractual and professional services.
So you do not have a separate line item for professional services, correct?
Specifically for professional, no.
No, you do not. And I think that's a problem. I mean, we can start off with that, recommending that there needs to be a separate line item for professional services. I mean, that's a big thing, that we don't even know how much money we spend on professional services.
But again, I guess, is there a professional services line under each individual group or each, because I know professional services can go across finance
So we have
organizations.
Yes, so we have, again, a line item that combines professional and contractual services. We have that line item by department. We have it broken down even further by specific org or subdivision. And then we can combine that any way we're interested in looking. So by fund, by project, if for some reason a contract crosses departments. So yeah, and to Commissioner Allen's point, as we look into this data, I think that's something we'd probably like to do if we're not splitting out an additional object. It's something that we could add as a kind of factor when we're entering the requisitions and contracts on the front end. If we do that, it's then very, very easy. Yeah, it's very, very easy to produce.
Just a quick question. Don't you separate the professional services from the contractual services with respect to the fact that the contractual services require an outside bid? So wouldn't you have to identify that at the front end, at the request or the purchase order level?
Not on the purchase order. So we would, not in the purchase order.
Requisition.
Yeah, not on the requisition either, because by the time we enter the requisition, we already would have gone through either competitive or non-competitive process. The backup documentation for that is going to be whatever agreement we have. So it's not necessarily going to indicate in the agreement the procurement process used to get to that point.
Yeah, help me understand then. You have a department that requires goods or services.
Yes.
At what stage does that department communicate that to the finance department?
Usually when they have a need and when they need the finance department's involvement.
And what do you call that document from the department to the finance department? would that not be a requisition from the department to the finance department?
it's
I'm
not
just
really-
looking for some terminology.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't be a requisition. What we call a requisition is specifically an item that you enter into our financial system supported by documentation when we actually go to make a payment, right? So we need a requisition to make a purchase order to make a payment. I think the kind of request you're talking about would be a request to the finance department that says, hey, we need to procure this item. These are the specific things that we need. Here's how we're going to go into the process. So for RFPs, we do have that, but it's not a formal process through our financial system. This would basically be an email to our person who manages that, who would then, with our RFPs, we run it through an electronic process. But if a professional, in the case that, something that a department is procuring does not require competition, they wouldn't necessarily need the finance department's involvement in that. Where we would do a check is if they come and they want to make a payment, we then will not authorize that payment until they can demonstrate that they have followed the purchasing procedures. And that's where kind of our control comes into place for those items that have not gone through the department originally.
So then the department itself has a certain purchasing autonomy. They can go out and enter into agreements and things like that to purchase services and.
It depends on the amount.
Okay.
Yeah, it depends on the amount. But yes, it depends on the amount. But really, under $5,000 is really the only place where they can just kind of go and purchase whatever they want. Anything over $5,000 requires at least 2 quotes, and they would need to then provide documentation for that, for finance to pass that through our purchasing process. If we don't see that, we'll kick that out of the system and we'll tell them to start over.
Thank you. I was just looking for kind of a starting point on trying to differentiate between the two, and I was hoping that it would be from the department to the finance department. And probably what you're saying is if it's more than $5,000, then that would be could be a logical point of origin for that, because that determination would have to be made.
It would, and I think what we're looking at doing, again, just for our own information and as part of this process, is identifying where in the system we can identify some of these characteristics that we will then want to review and report on. And, coming into the data, because it hasn't been established before, we don't have that. We need to figure out a way to do it. But it is a good point that we can kind of take a look at we can add our electronic bidding system kind of as a data point. But again, it really kind of requires pretty detailed analysis to identify which one is which. And then in addition, we would like to provide this commission detailed information on what process we actually used.
Can we get a copy of your very nice outline on how you're approaching the purchasing?
I believe so.
Early on in the discussion of this, Stephanie, we were looking at trying to determine exactly how much is in that procurement, in that category, and how much was actually put out for bid and how much was not. Is that those numbers are still under review?
They are still under review, and I do appreciate the commission's patience. I know this sounds like something that should be very simple to get. I wish it was, but it's still in process. I did take a quick look. I mean, because sometimes by vendor, you can get some idea. And again, there's some that it's easy to pull out that are contractual versus professional services. But, anything that isn't thorough is going to be an estimate, and I would prefer to provide
Understood. Yeah.
numbers that I can definitely stand behind. The the universe of our contractual and professional services, we were looking at this last time. I know because we were just looking at it in our core budget. So I think the core budget for the general fund totals about 7.1 million. Does that sound right? Yeah, it's about 7.1 total general fund, combining contractual and professional services. Cannot remember the citywide number off the top of my head. But again, those numbers are by line item in our budget book. Unfortunately, they combine the total, but that gives some idea of kind of the overall magnitude. I don't think it would be less, I don't think, yeah. I was gonna say I don't think it would be more than half, but honestly, I'd have to look at that because one very large contract could skew the numbers.
Okay. Anything more on this?
I have a motion if there are no public comments.
Yeah, no one on Zoom and no e-comments.
Okay, so I have a motion. One, to separate professional services line item from all of contractual so we can track it. And this is a perfect time to do it because we have budget season coming up. So when they're doing the new budget, they can separate professional services from contractual services. So we can only see the professional, so we are able to see the professional services separately. And two, to officially require a process, at least 3 bids for services less than $50,000 and an RFP for services $50,000 plus. That's a start.
I'm not sure if we can actually officially require, we can propose.
The council can, so recommend the council to, we can't require any of the stuff I'm talking about, or any of us. So recommend that the council to separate line for professionals, to require separate line for professional services in a budget book. And also, of course, I mean, also for the departments. And two, to have an official requirement for professional services approvals, which would be anything under 50K to require at least 3 bids, and anything over 50K or over have an RFP.
Okay.
Or RFQ.
Is there a second?
I second.
How much of the issue of the bid, the dollar size that you're in the second part of the motion, is any of that covered in the city charter or city regs ordinances to date?
Yeah, don't know. It would seem to be, but
For purchase orders, they have limits, and she can probably tell you.
So for professional services, the only statement in our municipal code is that competition is not required. So we have internal policies that set thresholds for purchase order requisition and for competitive bidding for items that do require competitive bidding. But in the municipal code, we don't have those.
So even if
For professional services.
Even for professional services, to create a PO, to be able to pay an invoice, you need to create a PO, correct?
We do, but I'm realizing as you say this that I misspoke. So professional services, we would not require that. Because
So for
again,
professional service, you do not even require a PO?
for professional services, sorry, we require a PO. We just don't require, we don't have the same quote requirements because again,
Okay, so I'm only talking
Yes.
about a PO. In order for professional services only and for POs only, if the, and I'll give an example, if the professional services is an amount of $50,000 do you require a PO?
Yes.
If a professional's services is $5,000, do you require a PO?
Yes.
So any amount you require a PO?
Below 5,000, we do not require.
Okay, so for $1,000, you do not require
We do not,
a PO?
no.
Okay,
$5,000 and above.
okay. So that's it looks like that's the only requirement they have, that if they're creating a PO, they require a PO if the services is $5,000 or more. But that's, there's
Okay.
nothing, at least somebody's aware.
For my purposes, I was trying to take notes as you made the motion. Could you restate the motion so that we know what we're voting on?
Okay, so two parts to it. First is in the budget, when they're doing the budgeting, they separate contractual and professional services. So there's a separate line item for professional services. So that way we are able to track how much money city is spending on professional services. Yes, do you have a question?
Yeah,
Please.
I guess my question is, it may come down to a definition between professionals. It might seem obvious, but I don't know that it is, between professional services and contractual services. I'm not sure that is a clean division.
There is. They have definitions for it.
Are
And then
professional
contractual
services provided by people that are certified professionals? I mean, what constitutes a professional service? See, I mean, that's what I'm talking about, and you'd have to.
They have that. They actually have that. That's why they're able to distinguish that they do not. They are not required to do bids for professional services. So they do have the definitions. They have.
Okay, well, I think that is. Are we okay with that, Stephanie? Assuming that that's available.
So do you know the difference? I guess the question is, do you know the
I guess.
difference between professional services and contractual
Yes.
services? They do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the difference?
Yeah.
Professional services, we do have a definition, but it's services basically requiring, it's quite vague, but it's services requiring professional expertise. I mean, I can pull it up in the code, and I think that definitions are something we're going to look at in this benchmarking study as well, because we'll probably benefit from being more
Clear. And this will force
more
them
clear,
to do that.
but it
right.
is.
This will force them. That's why I want to have
exactly the
it.
direction that
Yes.
I'm trying to
Yes.
kind of
Because this
go,
will force
is
them
to say
to.
that starting with the definition of what constitutes professional services versus contractual is really an important first step. Then once you have that, I think you can unfold it.
But when they're separating, then it will force them to understand it, right? Otherwise, they won't know what to put where.
I just want to clarify, it's not that we don't know which one is which, it's that all of the budget is lumped together, and it is not immediately simple to pull out vendor by vendor and identify if it's contractual or professional by the vendor title.
Yes,
So it's not that we
yes.
don't know
We're
what
not
it is.
questioning that we don't, I'm not questioning that you don't know. I'm just proposing that we separate those.
So there would be
that one-
an effort in someone's part to decide whether it's contractual or professional. It's probably,
And that will be,
They-
finance will be leading that.
yeah. I mean, it's a group of activities that can be grouped together. One requires a professional status of some kind in order to do it, and the other does not.
And once we have that, then we can look at examples and see if that makes sense. But if we do not have that, we can't do anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so that was the first.
Okay.
And the second was regarding the bids required. So anything under $50,000, they're required to do 3 informal bids. And anything $50,000 or more, they're required to do an RFP or RFQ. Or, I mean, which one, I think RFP would be more, RFP.
Whatever.
Let's do RFP. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
I'm certain that there's, on those bids for services, I'm certain that that is referenced in the city charter. And I don't know what the city charter,
And I got the number from, there is another small, similar sized city that 50,000 is what they use.
my point is, if that's in the city charter, then that
Stephanie says-
requires a charter amendment.
For professional services, it's not in the city charter. It was only in the city charter for Public Works.
Okay,
And those are the ones that we just updated, I think, a few years ago.
So the council has the authority to.
yep, okay. Okay, we understand the motion.
And I
Any
think-
further discussion on the motion?
I guess, are we sending a letter or recommend, like, what are we, how are we sending?
We'd have sent a letter, a recommendation to city council.
Okay.
And maybe we should add that, thank you, to the motion. Who wants to write it? Who wants to what are we doing, subcommittee? I'll volunteer if anyone else wants to volunteer.
Let's vote on the motion, and then we can decide who prepares it. If there's no further discussion, let's vote on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None?
None. Commissioner Jesse had already seconded, just for the record. Okay. Yes.
Why don't you write the draft and circulate it to, we can't circulate it between, to everybody.
No, unfortunately, yeah.
If you draft it, send me a copy of the draft.
Okay.
It's actually a great idea because I think you're supposed to sign it as the chair.
I'm sorry?
I think you're supposed to sign it as the chair. So
it'd be
maybe
good
you
for her
can
to
get a
send you the
final
draft and then-
review.
Yeah.
And if you'd like to send it to me, I can send it and BCC the commission, or I think you're free to send it as well.
You can send it to council directly and then BCC us.
Okay, we'll do that. Okay.
That's it. We're done with professional services for now. And then once we have that data, then we can revisit. Otherwise, we can't do anything.
Okay. Okay, we're finished with J2. J3, discussion regarding the CIP subcommittee activity. Stephanie, you want to start that?
Sure. We're bringing this back as we have the last few meetings to ensure that we continue to get updates and move towards providing a recommendation to council. Where we had left off in our last meeting was that the commission raised a number of concerns. We hadn't specified one specific problem. The subcommittee was noted to still be working on looking in a little more detail at the list of projects. They're going to identify a few more projects and go through them in detail and come and report back to then talk to the commission about making a recommendation. I think tonight, we're bringing it back again to see any update from the CIP subcommittee on doing this additional work. And then from there, look at what our steps are to making a recommendation to council.
And we have one of the members of the subcommittee here. Two are not here. So we need to decide whether, we obviously don't have a report of the subcommittee as far as I know. So we need to decide whether we want to, as a committee, issue a report without the input of the subcommittee. So, Vijay, any comments from your standpoint?
I have gone through all the CIPs that were completed last year, and no two projects are alike. There is such a huge variety of different things that are going on. I can only reach some conclusions. One is that the entire capital improvement, project management process is antiquated. The change order process was established 32 years ago. It has not changed since then. And it looks like in practically every project, the tendency is to not plan as well as they should, and then they resort to spending the money through the change order process. The best example is the Manhattan Beach, Inglewood Avenue rework. There were a lot of things involved. And that project lasted for 10 years. So it's not something that needed something urgently. And that was...
Excuse me, go into detail on that. What kind of a project do we have that lasted 10 years?
It's quite complicated. I mean, I think there are about 20, 30 pages of minutes of the meetings and what have you that I went through. I don't know if I can summarize it. I can give you a report and summarize it. The thing is, anything that goes that long, there is no reason. My contention from day one has been, why don't we get bids for everything that costs us more than a certain amount? And the engineer is authorized to spend up to $25,000 for any emergency. You start digging and then suddenly a pipe bursts. You need to get that fixed. But that limit was $25,000, and I went through all the projects and I realized that the engineers have used it very judiciously and very sparingly. So they do not, they've done a really great job. But then this Manhattan Beach, Inglewood redevelopment project, the change order limit was raised from $25,000 to $100,000. For what reason, I do not know or understand. And then, and I have mentioned this many times before, if you take a look at the total of all the money spent on CIPs last year, 80% of the money was spent on change orders, 80%. And I also looked at the jobs that invited bids. The difference between the lowest and the highest bidder is between 5 and 7.5%. So my contention is, if we solicit bids for everything that is expected to cost more than $25,000, I think there is a big saving. It's a big opportunity. But since we have that option available, that is used far more often than necessary, at least in my opinion. I even wrote, when I talked about several issues, I wrote a letter to the mayor. His response was, the CIP process is confusing. These are his words. And he has asked for changes and he hasn't gotten them. So if the mayor finds it confusing and he's not able to get something changed, what are our chances of getting something changed? That's not going to happen. So the city council has been rubber stamping all the changes, anything over 25,000, and in one particular project over 100,000. So they don't ask any questions. There is no discussion, no presentation of more data. And that's the other thing, that in order to improve the entire process of planning a project and managing it, you need to have data. And without the data and without analyzing the data, you have no way to know where you can make the improvements and how you can make it more efficient, more cost effective. Just, it's not possible. So my recommendation would be, we need a total revamp of the entire capital improvement management process and separate the maintenance from the capital improvements. And this was the suggestion even by the auditors, that if you have routine maintenance, that's not capital improvement. So it should not be lumped in with all the other capital improvement projects. Capital improvement projects should be exactly what the title says.
I
But I thought so they are together?
They are all together.
The finance director confirm, are the maintenance projects and capital improvement
separate.
projects, they're not separate, they're all lumped in together?
So talking about professional and contractual, it's the same thing
So
here. Everything is lumped together.
I just want her to confirm, yes or no, are the maintenance projects and CIP projects lumped in together?
I'm not sure what you mean by lumped in together, but we consider them both as part of our larger capital improvement program.
Okay, so you're right, they
So
are.
you will see some
So we need to
projects,
separate them.
but some projects are maintenance. Yeah, we consider those both part of our CIP.
Okay, that's so bad, I didn't believe it.
I believe we do indicate what is maintenance and what is kind of like an ongoing project and what's kind of a standalone project. I believe we do identify those.
Okay, that's so bad that I didn't think that was true, but you're correct.
But I may be missing a point here. There are some maintenance items that take on a nature almost of a capital investment.
And that's why we put them in. That's why we put them in the CIP. So we're not doing regular, kind of smaller dollar value ongoing maintenance is not in our capital project. It's kind of our larger, I'm trying to think of one right now, like our residential rehab or our annual like street repaving, right? Those are going to be, we're going to organize those in our budget as capital improvement projects because they are large dollar value items that kind of fit that category.
Okay, sorry.
If we wanted to kind of show them, say, this section of the CIP are largely maintenance and these are standalone projects, I mean, that's very easy for us to do.
I think just maybe from an accounting standpoint, if an activity extends the life of the asset,
definition.
It's a capital expense. If it's something that just is in the normal scope of operating that particular asset, is necessary to keep it operational without substantially extending the life, then it's considered to be routine maintenance.
So that recommendation is to actually separate that, which I'm for.
Yeah, that's one. Secondly,
Okay.
do away with the change order process the way it is. You can always have the authority for the engineer to spend up to $25,000 for emergency. Nothing else should fall into change order. And this is where 80% of the money is going. I've talked to independent contractors in the area, and they all say they like the way it is because when there is a change order issued, they don't get the bids, so they will always quote a much higher price because that's where they make money.
So what do we do with the change orders?
What was your comment about higher price? I missed that. The service providers like it because why?
The change order allows the administration or the planning people to place the order on whoever is already doing some work. And they say, okay, tell us how much this is going to cost and we're not going to go out for bids. So naturally, he's going to quote much more.
But it is at the prior agreed to price. It's not a higher price.
It's an extension of the project, and this is where the planning comes in. And the planning is very poor because they know that they can always issue a change order and keep the project going. So if the work is done, and in the meantime, the city finds out that they have some additional funds from whatever source they are getting, or if there is something that they feel, just like the 190th Street and PCH intersection, when they started working on it, they invited the bids. That part was done, and then in the meantime, they thought, well, it would be nice to do something else in addition, and they simply gave that job to the contractor who was working on it without getting the bids. And that's what happens time and again on every project that I looked at. So if they don't go out for bids, the contractor knows it. He knows what he has to do. This is something in addition to the initial project.
But you used the comment they don't have to go out for bid. They don't go out for bid on the extension of the project, but it is done under the mandates of a bid, an RFP process that's already been done. So it is under terms of it's under a contractual term.
The
Right.
project number and the contract description doesn't change as best I can tell. The only thing that changes is the source of funding or some additional work that the city feels that could be done.
You see, the problem I'm having with this whole process, number one is I didn't sit in those meetings with Public Works. So I don't know some of the rejoinder to the comments that you would logically make and that if I were in your place, I would be making. I need to see that before I can make a decision on this. I can't make a decision based upon what we've done so far. And I don't think this commission can make a decision based on what we've received so far.
What was it that you need information on? That you don't know?
I want to hear the Director of Public Works explain why we issue work orders so often, and I ask him the question: Are you sure that you're not paying a higher price for this than if you went out for a work order? Now, he or she could be clouding the issue if they wanted to. And or they could be giving an honest opinion that there is no increase in price, in my opinion, because of these facts. That's the kind of thing we need to hear from.
We had the subcommittee meeting with the planning people. And the problem is every project is unique. So you cannot, come to some generalization.
I think your observation, though, that 80% of the cost was based on contract changes orders, I think that in itself spells out a problem. That the planning at the front end isn't comprehensive enough to carry through to the completion of the project. And if the planning part of it only covers 20% of the cost, I guess that's enough for me to say that there appears to be a problem with coming up with the quote initially that the original bid is based on. And if there's a problem with that, it's only 20% of the total cost. So the contractor then gets brought back in to complete the project that ends up being 80% of the cost.
The people in planning, they did not see anything wrong with what they were doing. They, were very protective, and they defended their status, and they said, we know what the cost is going to be, so the contractor cannot charge us more. Now, how do they know? Because what they are asking the contractor to do is sometimes completely different from what he has done. And yet he is getting the job because he was involved with it initial stage. So, Chairman, the problem is every project is unique, every project is different. The only thing I can conclude based on what I've seen and what I've read, and I think the whole process needs to be revamped. And in 30 years, a lot of things have changed, technology has changed. These people do not have any training or any education or experience in process improvement, in data analysis, and those are the things that are missing.
And the projects that I'm used to seeing have a contingency percentage, and usually it runs between 5 and 15%. So if the planning's done properly, you may run into a contingency, but it shouldn't exceed some close range of what the original price was. Certainly 80% more than what the original price is.
That's because they were continuing to expand.
My point is that this conversation should be taking place in front of the head of Public Works who can answer the question of why we did it this way.
We did that.
Wasn't he here
Well, you-
not
yeah,
long
but-
ago, and he answered those questions, and they, they
No, no.
protect what they do.
What I've heard so
and-
far is that they're defensive and
That-
defending that. They
But that-
defend it, but I want to hear how they're defending it. And
Well, we did hear.
no, we didn't. I
Maybe
didn't-
you
I
weren't
didn't hear.
here. Well, I mean, that's,
And I
if you
don't
weren't
know.
here, that's on you.
We had a couple of meetings
Yeah.
with the planning people. We had very heated discussion, and they were,
You can meet, if you want to meet with him, you can separately meet with him.
We've got a meeting with Public Works where we're asking them to appear in our May meeting, right?
That's Monday?
Is it, no, we're going to, we're.
No, it changed.
Is it,
Changed, okay.
is it confusing the issue to both talk about the budget and their process at the same time when we have them in front of the commission?
I can ask.
don't
I-
think so,
I
because
guess,
of the budget.
yeah, I think so. I think the Public Works Director also, feels that the Public Works Department has explained this process several times. I mean, we did have a very detailed meeting with the subcommittee. I think it's unfortunate that 2/3 of the subcommittee is not here to, share any additional information about that. So, we can have another discussion. I'm just trying to be mindful of his time and the explanations that he's provided. I can go back and look at the meetings where they presented. We have video, we have transcripts. So he goes into a lot of these questions in detail. I think, yeah, so he goes into some of those in detail. Definitely, I think we can bring up the question when we have the other commission join us, if they choose to join us. I guess I would hesitate to turn that into a discussion of the CIP process when we're focused on the budget, but, it can't hurt to bring it up.
But it is part of a budget, if you have budgeted this much and then you're doing all these change orders, well, if it wasn't budgeted, then where do you get this money from? So that's a good budget question, right?
Yeah.
So I would ask that. That's relevant. That's exactly what are discussing here. And that's very connected to that's exactly what it is. It's budget. If it's not budgeted, where is it coming from?
mostly it is from funding from so many other, say, like the metro and.
Right, but that was supposed
the
to be part of our budget,
crafts,
right?
So,
But if it's external sources, then we're not paying for it, so it's coming from a separate funding.
Right, but it's
That's different.
forecasted
That's
in a
different
budget
than-
book.
But that's different than if we budget for it, right?
It should be forecasted in a budget book. It's not like the money all of a sudden
see,
just
they,
gets.
So generally, what we put in the budget book, so especially for the items where we get an annual allocation, like the transit funding or other county funding, they'll give us an estimate of the funding for the year. We take that funding and any remaining balance, we project spending that. The items that Commissioner Yessi is referring to is many times throughout the year, some cities don't spend money. They have revisions to their estimates. They'll come back to the city and say, hey, so-and-so city didn't use their allocation. We have another $1 million for X. And they say, hey, what can you guys use it on? So we project in our budget based on the best information that we have. That is the only money we plan on spending. And then if other information comes in, we'll program that at a later point.
Look, I don't mean to speak for the commission. If you all have seen those presentations and you have a firm view of what Public Works is saying, that's a different issue. I apparently missed those meetings because I don't recall sitting in front of the Public
I
Works.
think you were absent. I
I
remember
missed
what, but there were two that you
two or three
missed.
meetings in a row.
let me, I have some notes from two projects that I highlighted. Job 41240 Anita Street at PCH Improvement. Initial cost was $213,800. Then when the project started, then the Measure R funding availability was announced in August of '24. So this is what I've seen in many projects, that after they start the work, then they say, oh, we got some funding from such and such major or metro or whatever. And then to spend that additional amount for any improvement, then they go directly to the contractor, and through change order process, they pay that additional amount. And the good example is the Inglewood Avenue at Manhattan Beach Boulevard intersection. Received $5,175,000 from LAC Metro. Contractor was awarded to AAA on June 15, 2021 for $935,000. Then the change order for $305,000 approved to offset setbacks and delays. Contract did not include improvement of signal equipment, something that they added to the job. Notice to proceed was issued in July 22. 5 change orders were bundled into one in December 22, and the project was completed in March 23. So this is what happens. So they realize that some funding is coming, so they go back to the contractor and then ask for the changes.
Well, what's the response from Public Works when you ask the question, why weren't these issues identified during the original planning process? Their response probably is because we had no way of knowing that they would occur. Well, if they have no way of knowing they're going to occur, I don't understand how you do that except through a change order. Can you simply blue sky it and say, okay, we're going to do X or between X and 50X? You can't do that. You've got to bid on what you know is going to take place, right?
Are you asking that it goes back out to bid if there's a change order over a certain level? Is that what you're asking? I guess, Commissioner Justice.
It seems that change orders have to occur in some circumstances. Now, you mentioned a project that took 10 years. Clearly, that's outside the norm of anything we can talk about here. But in a normal project, you plan for what you know. If the county or the state comes along and drops money in your pocket and you say, well, we can do more than we anticipated, that's a valid reason for it. You didn't anticipate that at the beginning. If you have money, you spend it, and that you have to have a change order for that. So it seems that there are some situations where no matter what you're doing, you have to be able to provide for those contingencies. That's what Public Works would tell us, I think.
The scope of the work, if it changes significantly, then they should be required to get bids. That's as simple as it can get. And that does not happen here. And this is why we start with $200,000 project, end up at 800,000 or way more than that.
So the question will be, at what point do you go and get bids?
And I suppose you could argue that the metrics of a $5 million project could be different than than the bid for $1 million. So there could be economies of scale, so that if we know it's going to be $5 million, we get a lower bid than if it's going to be $1 million.
The bottom line is, and I've done this for 30 years in the private sector, and I can tell you one thing. Initially, you have to spend an awful lot of time in developing the specs and the scope of the project. And there was one lady who had the public comment about 3-4 months ago. I don't remember her name. Maybe Stephanie might remember. And she said the same thing that Mr. Mueller has said a couple of times, that the initial planning is very, very poor. And this is probably happening not at the city level, but even at the state level. That's why some of these projects, they start at, very low projection, and then we end up spending millions and billions more because nobody does the kind of planning and developing the specifications up front, because they know that they will get funding down the road.
Yeah,
that's
again, the thing I would quarrel with as far as a recommendation, it'd be your suggestion that you don't do change orders at all. I think that's clearly not even from a, you don't have to be a professional.
Right, that will be impossible.
It'd be impossible. So you've got to
I
have
didn't say,
something.
I didn't say no change orders.
Change orders.
I didn't say no change orders. Anything over 25,000, get the bids. That's all I'm saying.
Before even we get to the change order part, I think Commissioner Sherbin and I have been mentioning something that's worthy of discussing is we think that, and you can interrupt me whenever you want, but it starts with comprehensive planning. So it all starts with the RFP and how it's written. So I'd like to focus more on, initially, before we even go to the change orders, let's talk about the RFP and what's not included and what should be included. Who oversees the RFP? It is a leadership, I think it's a leadership issue. I think someone needs to approve that RFP, not just by signing, but really going through it and thinking what's, are all the scenarios in this RFP.
I think if the philosophy in the very beginning is that there will be change orders that could happen, but they better not exceed 10% of the total bid going in, or you've changed the nature of the project. Mm-hmm. And you're held to that. And if the project changes, you get sort of a scope drift or whatever whatever they call that. Then it's literally another it's not the same project. It's another project, it's another bid if that additional cost is going to exceed a certain percentage of the original bid.
All valid comments. What did the professional people from Public Works say in their 2 or 3 meetings that I missed to address those kind of questions? That's my point. We need to hear their response to the damn thing.
They did give response, but they
my recollection of the response was that as the project develops, the scope changes because of some better vision, whatever it is. They go, and if they need to, they go back to the council, and the council says, proceed with the project. There isn't a real check to say that was presented that they go through another process of rebidding, reevaluating, and asking some questions. What's the reason that we need this change? Was there, additional work that was required that wasn't originally planned? Or is it new work that wasn't originally planned? I think that's what it comes down to for me. And it's the ability to be able to move that goalpost that the department uses. And they just say, it's not so important for us to define the project right now completely because we've got this ability to be able to move the goal as we need to, if it's legitimate, if it's quote unquote legitimate. And that just means if there's a desire to make a change.
These works need to be proactively anticipated. So they need someone with knowledge, not just an associate engineer drafting the RFP, but someone at a more expert level who can anticipate those kind of changes coming up.
Do we have that person on staff? And
the city engineer should be able to do that, or because to me this says what's going on is either they do not have a qualified city engineer or this person is not doing what they're supposed to be doing.
I think it's philosophical. I don't think they're being held to the test to say if it's more than 10%, let me talk with the engineer because there was a problem with this or whatever the criteria is. But I think as opposed to that, it's kind of it's mission creep or whatever it's called.
I'll give you a good example. You want to build a house, you get the contractor, 2 or 3 contractors to bid, you award the job to the lowest bidder, whatever. And then halfway through the project, while the house is being built, you say, well, we would like to have an Olympic-sized swimming pool in the back. So would you give the job to the same contractor, regardless of whatever price he quotes, or would you go around and solicit bids from a couple other people? That has nothing to do with the house. It's in addition to the project. That's what happens here. In this case, in the case of the city, they will give the job to the same contractor without getting bids.
Well, again, I'm misunderstanding that because the discussion I've tied myself to before is that we're talking about simply additional units of what was in the original RFP. If we're talking about a totally different item, the swimming pool was not mentioned in the original RFP, so how is that included under that original contract?
Every job is different, and this is why it is so difficult
See,
to.
that's a great point you're bringing, because then somebody's breaking the rules.
Yeah.
That should not be the case. But by change order, they can do that. And I think what Commissioner Jesse is saying that, there has to be rules for the change orders. You can only do change orders for items that were in the RFP. If it was not in the RFP, you cannot do the change order.
Okay, assuming that we have identified several instances where change orders were done incorrectly or not based on best practices, the recommendation we as a commission would make would be to send a recommendation to City Council saying, basically, we see some potential problems in the purchasing process, and we think they should be corrected. So if we do more than 2 sentences, but that's all we can do.
It needs better oversight. I think that's really what it is. It's an issue with an oversight. It's
accountability back to what the original request for proposal.
It's an issue of someone, cutting the corners, and even in cases where they could have gone to another RFP, they said, oh, well, we can do a change order. Why waste time on administrative tasks?
Instead of a problem, I would call it an opportunity to streamline the process. And this is something I've done it before, and I know how much difference it makes. And
why don't we do this? Let's a new subcommittee of 2, you and you, get together and do a short draft of what we would recommend, the kind of recommendations we would make to City Council. And I don't know that those issues exist, but they might. And if they do, that process does need an overhaul. And so all we can do is recommend that you, City Council, review the purchasing process. And for these reasons, these are potential problems that we see. You guys have worked in this field, and you know the terminology, and you know how to draft a recommendation. That's the most we can do. And we can do that without the other 2 members of the original subcommittee weighing in.
Yeah.
So do you have a motion to do that?
What do you think? Or do you need additional people?
Or you're the additional person, aren't you?
You want me to be? I can if you.
No, I'm just.
Or whatever you want.
The three
Who
of
would
you.
like to?
I think it's better if it is 3 of us.
Right.
Okay.
Whatever you need.
I'm sorry, you said just the 2? Or you?
The
3.
3, okay, the 3.
Darian, do you want to?
Oh, no, you 3 are perfect.
That's okay if you want. I don't have.
I was just.
Okay, I think I can appoint a subcommittee if the commission decides that's what we want to do.
I'm okay with it. But we've been discussing this for a long time, and I think we've questioned a lot of people. We got a lot of answers, and now it's up to us to think and do what we want other people to do.
And a suggestion, the terminology should not be in the sense that there is waste, but there is potential for waste. And these are corrective steps that we think should be considered.
Yeah, and all it is that we're recommendation at the end of the day we're giving to council who might not do anything with it at all.
I think we need a motion.
Well, I don't want to start with that as the mandate.
But I think we need a motion a motion approved by the commission that we will send such a letter to council. And then if that,
We'll create a draft or send it to you, then you can.
Then we can decide, because isn't that a little bit, can we do that? Can we do it that way?
For the commission to vote on it.
Whether or not we want to proceed with that.
you draft a letter or a policy statement or a statement to council, it'll come back to the commission for approval.
Yeah, to review.
For us to discuss, review, and approve.
Okay.
Yep, that's All right, motion to,
Sorry, before your motion, just have to say there's no one on Zoom or no e-comments.
thank you. All
And
right.
I can, oh, sorry.
No, please.
I was just going to say, I can go and find the meetings that the Public Works was present at and share both the video and the transcript with you, if any of that is instructive.
So I think if you go to the meetings, it was right before you got elected for the position or not elected.
I would love to see that if you don't mind doing that.
Yeah,
Yes.
2 or 3 meetings.
I will definitely do that. I'm so sad I did not record our subcommittee meeting with Public Works. I thought about it, I did not do that. Commissioner Yessi, you should have thought of that brilliant idea. I was clearly not up to it.
I'm tired of arguing because I've done this for so long.
I don't think I can make a motion, can I? Why don't you make the motion?
Yeah, anybody, a motion that we create a subcommittee of Commissioner Jesse, Commissioner Sherburne, and Commissioner Allen to write a motion,
Right, letter recommendation.
letter of recommendation
To City Council
to City Council.
regarding purchasing practices.
Yes. And then we bring it to the committee for approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Yay.
Okay. J4, website content.
So this is something that I had asked to be placed on the agenda. And I want to kind of start just being on an agenda to start thinking about this and start discussing it. I know I can't do it, but either if staff can go to the finance website, or the commissioners can go to the finance website and see what kind of reports are posted, because I want us to be able to make recommendations how we can have public-friendly reports so that the public can look at it and easily understand our budget. What we have currently, and this is why I kind of wanted it to be everyone to see, we have reports that are hundreds of pages, and there's no way for the public to understand these reports. So is ACFR on our website? And for us also to understand exactly what's on our website, what else we need to provide, what can we do so that it's public friendly? So you don't have to be a finance person to understand, but you can easily go in these reports and without reading 300 pages, understand the city finances.
So our basic reports, and Commissioner Allen is correct, our main reports are just the budget, which you've seen our budget document. We have our capital improvement program budget. We also have here, we include our budget response reports, and these aren't quite budget documents, but these are the reports. Oh, that's the budget. I clicked the wrong one. But these are, oh, no, it's just the same. It's just the same cover. These are the reports that kind of supplemental reports that we prepare for the city council every year in response to specific kind of programmatic questions. So we have those items. We have our regular budget, our CIP, and these reports. And then we also have our ACFR here by year. And I also started adding our single audit report, which is our report for the federal government on all our federal funding. I would agree, and I communicated this to Mr. Mueller, he had some comments about the readability of the ACFR. The ACFR is not designed for the public. It is not designed for decision makers. It is designed for accountants, and it is designed for financial oversight. And the way that the format that it's in meets all of those requirements, and we kind of need to keep it in that format. I do have a couple proposals for this. One is to create what's called a PAFR. I'm sure, you know, Commissioner Allen, you may have heard of this. It's a popular annual financial report instead of comprehensive. And what this does is it does aim to take all of this, kind of not readable financial information and identify what is meaningful to people. So our assistant director, she's done this in other cities that she's been a part of, so she's excited to work on that for our city. We've also looked for the budget at producing like a budget snapshot. Again, this is something a lot of other cities do. And apart from that, if the commission has ideas for ways that are best practices to share financial information, we're very happy to do that. Yeah, we can look at the GFOA. They usually have some recommendations for improving kind of public understanding of the budget. I will say the one tool that we removed was our transparency site. That's something that we paid for through OpenGov, and it's where we upload our expenditure and revenue data, and you can kind of create these charts and graphs. A lot of cities adopted these about 10-ish years ago. I looked through a variety of cities. Many of these have retired those sites. I think Torrance still has one. I think there's maybe one other city I found, but their data was also from like 2022. And what happened with our site is that first, finance was very busy. We did not update it, but also we're coming to the end of our contract. It's about $10,000 a year, and it was unclear how many people were looking at or using the information, and we determined to not continue the contract at that time. This is something, obviously, if there's interest in it, we can look around and see what options there are. So that's an item we can look at, but that's what happened to that program that we used to have on the site.
So what I'm looking for is a few pages of visual graphs that someone who does not understand what, the way we understand, that they can look at it and say, oh, this is what our revenue is, and oh, this is what our expenses are. This is where our revenue's coming from. This is how much property taxes we are receiving. This is how much sales tax we're, just very high level, public-friendly, a few pages. So I'm sure you know exactly what, I can give examples from other cities, but just something that's public-friendly. It's, I do not expect anyone to open that up for and understand or open it. That's all.
Who would do this? We have people on staff.
Yeah,
we could do it.
That's what they do in budgets.
We have looked at a budget snapshot. I think we started looking at it last year, and I lost my budget analyst, so that was a little challenging. But yeah, this is not difficult for us to do. Generally, you kind of pull kind of the high-level numbers, put together a kind of nice 2-page overall city revenue, city expenses, highlight a few programs. I think that's something that's very doable for us.
Yeah, and just to have in there how much of that money goes to police department, to fire department, because our public doesn't know how much money we actually spend on police department, which is higher than any, that percentage-wise, it's higher than any city I know that I've looked at. So that would be a good information for public to know that, hey, 70% of our budget goes to fire and police, for example.
I will say, if you look in our budget book, because it's digital, it's pretty easy to pull up and just go to any one of these individual pages where they have the line item budget.
The public's not going to do that, though. Yes, I know you have this, but
I'm just saying that
pretty easy to jump around.
It is pretty straightforward, and if you just look at the front, you have the name, you have an organizational chart. We have several different breakdowns of their spending, and we have performance measures. So if I agree with you. I think we could definitely do something that's kind of high level and points on these things, or points on items that might be of special interest. But I do think that our budget is fairly easy to look at if you just open this and you want to go to an individual department and see what the spending is, see what they're doing. and see some trends over time.
Yeah, I mean, this certainly works for us, for this group. This is, very comprehensive for us, easy to navigate, but for someone who's not in the same industry as we are, just for them to just take a look and say, hey, property taxes isn't that much. And it's really coming, the sales taxes is what's paying our police department, not my property taxes. That's just an example, just something for the public to really understand that the taxes are not really coming from them that much. It's coming from other sources.
It is coming from other sources. We do have a fairly diversified.
Mm-hmm. But that, I think for now, that's all I have. And I know a few pages of PowerPoint charts. It's not a big deal to create because you already have the numbers.
You've got the detail. Going up the matrix is not
It's
so
easy.
difficult. It's just deciding on a graphic and then rolling.
Yeah, it's just deciding on a graphic, deciding what to highlight. So
And there are plenty of cities who have that, so you
Yes,
can
there's
just go
many.
and copy it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. That's just copy what other people, whether it's Manhattan Beach, El Segundo, whatever. Like, just copy what they have. That's it. I think that's all I had for the websites. I don't know if anyone else has anything they want to suggest, but it's something that good for public. So do we want to have a motion to recommend to create summary charts, budget charts? I guess that's what I'll call it, or whatever we want to call it.
You're making that motion?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry, no one on Zoom and no e-comments.
Okay, motion's been made. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good. Neat picture. Okay, we're through J4, ready for J5. Proposed regular May meeting. Stephanie, you want to
Yes.
cover this? I think it's, the change is to move that April 27th meeting to later in May, after the budget is presented by staff to City Council. We don't have anything to discuss until that happens.
Yeah, and this is partially in response to the information last year. We really want to have time to have a more substantive discussion with this commission before council meets. So we're proposing two things. First, I'll talk about the Budget and Finance regular meeting. Normally, this would take place, I believe, May 14th, which is directly before we deliver the budget to council. We would like to propose that we reschedule that, so we do not hold that meeting, and instead we hold that on the 26th. It's a Tuesday. Council does not meet that day, and at that point, we will have delivered the budget to council and have, presented kind of the receive and file. So this would be a great opportunity to have a really substantive discussion with this commission. And then we will have a chance to meet again the second week in June before final budget adoption. So wanted to propose this to you. The second piece of that is that with kind of the same thinking in mind, we had planned to have a joint Budget and Finance and Public Works Commission meeting next Monday on the 27th. We would like to cancel that meeting and instead invite the Public Works Commission to join at the April 26th meeting. We don't need to do a joint meeting, kind of discuss that.
You mean May 26th?
Oh, sorry, May, yes, wow, May 26th. But we would instead invite them to come and they can participate in that meeting as well, which would, again, be a more substantive discussion.
Okay, motion to change May 14 meeting to 26th. I think that's really all we needed to do.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
No public comment.
To it? Like, I'm fine,
I can do it. Well, if they're voting yes, I'm assuming.
Yeah,
I'll
that's
be
what I
out
make
of
sure.
town afterwards.
No, it's very sad.
Oh,
I won't be able to attend.
hopefully one other person will
You
Make
get
it.
enough responses from,
We have gotten no responses
Okay.
except for Commissioner Yesti, but I think four should be all we need for a quorum.
4 of us
Is
right
that
now.
correct?
Oh, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I
hope we're-
was not counting myself. Okay, any second? Did we do a second? Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And along with that, keep in mind that June 2nd is council discusses specific operations, parts of the budget. June 9th, capital. And May 19th is the staff presenting. So you'll be front and center on that, right?
Yes, yep. So the way that it works, that we have to deliver the budget to council by charter on May 16th. So usually on or around May 16th, we send council an email with a link to our proposed budget document. I will send that information to the commission as well so that you're able to begin looking at it, and then we'll have a meeting to present that budget to council the following Tuesday.
So the commission will not see that document before it is presented to council on,
The May
We'll see
16th.
it at the same time they deliver it. We'll see it before the
so
presentation.
it will not be presented to commission before it is presented to council.
Right.
Somehow we need to change that.
So that's how it's historic, from my understanding from the city manager. That's kind of council's prerogative. It's our responsibility to deliver the budget to council, and
Well, yes, you have to deliver it to council at a certain time, but I mean, the purpose of the commission is to see this stuff and advise, do something before it goes to council.
Not necessarily. I mean, we're responsible to review the proposed budget. And until it's a proposed budget, we don't have anything to review. We can.
That's exactly my point, that we should review before the council, it's presented to council.
Well, again, there's nothing, there's no document to review.
Proposed budget that I think that we're talking about. Yeah. So we won't see the proposed budget, but we'll get in between the time that we get the proposed budget and they take action on the budget. I think that's what we're saying.
Usually commissions, before council takes action on it,
yeah,
we need to give feedback on it.
Doesn't that happen between May 16th and subsequent to May 16th? Everybody gets a chance to look at the proposed budget, say on May 16th. The council doesn't take action on it till a subsequent date. So we can also take action on it during that period of time and say, here's our recommendation. We know you guys are considering it. Here's what we'd like you to consider. We'll have as much time to do that before.
So in which meeting will you do?
Well, the 16th, 16th of May, the information is going to be available.
so May 26th.
May 26th meeting is the meeting at which we'll discuss the budget. We'll discuss the budget that was presented to us, sent to us on the 16th, and that's presented to City Council on the 19th. So there's a 1 week difference.
And what is, on May 19th, what is the city council going to do with that? So they're going to see it before we do. They're going to have a chance to comment on it or approve it before the commission makes comment on it.
They'll comment on it, but they're not going to approve it. They don't.
Because they're going to say, well, what did the commissioner say?
You're presenting that on the 19th.
Yes, so and as the city manager mentioned, that's a receive and file item. So council is taking no action on it. In my experience, there isn't even substantive discussion on it. The purpose is for us to present it in a public setting. The city manager shares kind of his vision for the budget, and then council, goes home and thinks about it, spends some time looking at it, and their official budget discussions begin that first Tuesday in June.
So June 2nd is the actual discussion?
Yes.
So we actually have a scheduled meeting to discuss the budget before City Council has a meeting to discuss.
That's what I was trying to get to.
Yeah.
And the council doesn't make any decisions on the budget until the last meeting in June. So we currently have budget adoption. That's when they vote on everything. That's when they adopt the budgets. They make no decisions before that point. We have them scheduled to adopt the budget June 16th. We do have another Tuesday in case they have some, outlying items they'd like to discuss. But yes, council will be in discussion mode only.
So we have two meetings at which, two scheduled meetings to discuss the budget before council adopts it.
And I think, thank you for attending the strategic plan meeting, but if anyone can attend these meetings, they're important. And if there's a subject.
You're talking about the second?
Oh, you did, okay. Oh, okay.
You're talking about the 2nd and the 9th?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
The 2nd and 9th. And if you have, a passion for any of the items.
I think as many as possible would attend the May 19th as well. I'm going to go to all of them.
And to, if there's something that's worthy of speaking.
Yeah.
That would be the right time to do it. Because I think when you talk to them during public meeting, it's different than just sending them an email.
I've tried both ways. It doesn't make any difference.
All we can do is try.
Okay, we've approved the change in those meetings. Move on to item K, commission members, items and future commission agenda topics. Nick, anything?
No.
So what is going to be on our next meeting's agenda?
Pardon?
What items are going to be on the agenda for our next meeting that we know of so far? The profession, oh no.
Well, we've got
The Public Works and the budget.
2 letters.
Okay, so then let's bring back the professional services procurement.
The only thing is, we're gonna also have the budget, and we're gonna have Public Works coming.
Yes, and I don't know that we're going to have anything substantive to deliver for you on procurement at our next meeting.
You may want to postpone that meeting.
I just don't want it to.
You don't want to lose it, I get that.
To lose it. Because when it's on the agenda, we can always say, okay, let's move it to the next time, and I don't want to forget. So we can maybe talk about having some
Next
June
meeting, we'll have the full budget to discuss.
Yes.
So that should be the primary topic, maybe the only topic.
Also, Public Works is coming as well.
Yeah, the Public Works, will you all?
Well, we also want to vote on the letter for the.
Yeah.
That's not going to take, the procurement, the letters are not going to take that.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll take maybe 10 minutes
Couple
each.
phone calls back and forth, I think, on that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that'll be on it.
So I need to make sure I have everyone's
Okay,
contact information.
we're on item K, commission member items and future commission agenda topics. Anything?
So that's, I think, what we discussed. So let's bring back, and we'll discuss only 10 minutes. We do not have time. We won't, because to discuss the letter, or I know the letters the professional letter, you're going to directly send it to council, but I just want to make sure the commission is also aware, and because nobody checks their emails. And then.
Well, that letter should come back to the commission before we send it.
Okay, then we have to just approve. So it will be 5-10 minute meeting max. Same with the subcommittee activity. So we bring it back just to approve the letter.
Okay. VJ? Damien?
Nothing.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.